No, I'm not sure. Good evening. It's October 10th, 25 minutes to 7. I'll call the meeting to order of the Dudley Conservation Commission. Commissioners present:
Nancy Vukovic,
Samantha Costello.
George Slingo.
Fran Mikulajczyk.
Okay, first on the agenda is Merino Pond 3-year extension to existing order conditions for weed control. Matt's recommendation is to issue a 3-year extension to the order conditions for weed control.
so moved.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second on the agenda is 118 Pierpont Road, amended order of conditions to include a septic system and well. Matt's recommendation is to issue the amended order of conditions.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Third thing on the agenda is 157 Baker Pond Road, a notice of intent for a single-family dwelling.
This has to be continued because there's still outstanding DEP issues.
Okay, so we gotta open the,
Oh, you just continue it
Just
again?
continue
All right.
again.
so we need a motion on that?
Make a motion, we continue the public hearing to October 31st for 157 Baker Pond Road for notice of intent for a single-family dwelling.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is Oddlock Place NOI, former Stevens Linen Dye House soil reclamation. There's no DEP number yet, so that needs to be continued. I need a motion on that.
Make a motion, we continue the Ardlock Place notice of intent for former Stevens Linen Dye House soil reclamation.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion,
It went October
Opposed?
31st.
motion carries. Next is sorry. 44 Alton Drive NOI for a single-family dwelling and wetland replication, public hearing continued. I'll open this meeting at 7.
6:28.
6:38?
6:28. 38, right?
6:38.
You said 7.
Good evening, I'm Ben Osgood, Ranger Engineering. I believe this was continued to confirm that the silt fence had been repaired, and on Friday after that meeting, we came out and inspected it. The contractor installed new silt fence. He sent pictures and a report to the commission via email that day. And I went out there today and verified again that it is still there, still in good shape. So it's been installed. So I don't know if that was the last outstanding issue, but if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
That was the main issue that I had, yes. I don't know about the other board members, but that was one of the main thing that I had. Is there any other questions from the board?
Yeah, they know that it says they have to replicate before they start construction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, usually they would go in and they would install the erosion control first before they do anything. Then they would clear the trees and then do the wetland replication. And that would be under the supervision of the wetland scientist, Chris Lucas, who's here. he would make sure everything got planted properly and was done properly before they were issued a building permit to construct the home.
Anybody got anything to say?
What was the issue you had before? I'm sorry, I wasn't here for the last meeting.
Okay. Well, we were promised that, or I should say, this board was promised that everything would be cleaned up and the silt fence would be put back up and the area would be cleaned up, and it was not.
That's what that was all about?
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we refused to go
So-
forward until it was fixed.
I have
Okay.
some abutters there.
Any other questions from the board?
No, thank you.
Are there any abutters? Please state your name again.
John Giaquinto, 42 Alton Drive. Yeah, I do have to say, they did fix what they said they were gonna fix. The gentleman, Joe, who's not here this evening, did the best he could after the last meeting. We caught him coming out of the woods into our driveway, so they did actually do it.
They said they, so everything is satisfactory now?
My only question now is, how was it signed off on the last time before the work that was supposed to be done was actually done?
It wasn't, nothing was signed off.
Oh, I thought at the last meeting it was signed off to go. Okay.
Nope. I refuse to sign off on it until they replicate, put everything back, fix all the stuff that they said they were gonna do.
My question now for these gentlemen, when do you plan on starting the work?
I don't know exactly. I think he would like to start that house probably before snow, but I'm not sure. It's going to depend on how they're going to get the erosion control with the wetland replication, and that's going to depend on the weather. If they can get it done before snowfall, they will, but otherwise they'll have to wait.
Okay, and there are a lot of trees down the side of my driveway. Are those all going to be removed? Because I might have to, like, move my vehicles if they happen to fall the wrong way.
So your property line is about 10 feet away from the driveway, so anything within 10 feet, they're not gonna touch because it doesn't belong to them. But beyond that, there may be trees that come up.
Because I know there's a lot of trees in between, like, my driveway and where the driveway for that house is planned.
Right, they'll leave as many as they can along the
When
line.
we grant it. When we grant it, we'll add that.
Okay.
That's basically it.
That's it?
Nothing more.
Okay. Any questions, any more questions from the board?
No.
All right.
Close the yep,
I'll close the public hearing at
6:43.
6:43.
I'll make a motion to issue a standard order of conditions with the additional condition that wetlands replication be completed, not including the growing season prior to construction activity.
Second.
Yeah, and the deed, there's a deed restriction to maintain a fence around the wetland.
Correct.
Okay.
So that,
Now you can. What, second? Second.
okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I have that paper? Thank you.
Second. Name it. And I second.
Thank you.
Okay. Next
Thank
on
you.
the agenda is Jesse Road. Notice of intent for subdivision, public hearing continued. Revised plan submitted based on Graves Engineering review. See letter from Ranger Engineering.
Is that Graves Engineering? We got a letter from Graves Engineering.
I
Right,
believe
and
that
Ranger.
gentleman there would be Ranger.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's behind the order.
Oh, so it's different than this one.
Good evening, Ben Osgood, Ranger Engineering. Since your last meeting, we had been working with the planning board with their peer review engineer, Jeff Walsh from Graves Engineering, to correct the things that he wanted corrected, many of which were small items with the stormwater management systems. So we have made those corrections. He submitted a letter to the planning board, which we received yesterday, and I gave you a copy today. I have additional copies if anybody needs them. But I wanted to point out a couple of things. I know there were, most of the stormwater comments were kind of minor, pipe sizes, pipe inverts, real kind of minutia. But we did talked a lot about the flooding that occurs over Jesse Road where the culvert comes across the street. And I asked him if he would to take a look at that and offer an opinion on whether he thinks we would have any impact. And his item 30, this is the review engineer from Graves, I don't see how the proposed subdivision could have an impact to flooding on the north side of Jesse Road. You know, it's been, I believe the flooding problem has been in large part due to the fact that the culvert hadn't been kept clean, and so the debris runs into the culvert and it can't carry the water under the roadway, backs up and flows over the road, backs up into this gentleman's backyard. I was happy to see before I came out here, the highway department appears to have cleaned the channel and the culvert is clear and it seems to be running pretty well. I think, you know, for the long term, it's going to be something that the abutter is going to have to talk to the highway department about to make sure they keep it clean. And, you know, as I said, the developer is willing to do whatever he can to help, but I don't know that we can replace that culvert. I don't know that DEP will allow you to take flooding from one place and send it downstream. So the other comment he did make is we are in compliance with the Stormwater Management Act, so we have, you know, managed our peak rates of runoff, which is the requirement through the Stormwater Management Act. Our detention ponds do that. We have a pretty sophisticated, you know, pond system that holds water and lets it out slowly. So we manage that runoff, so there is not an impact downstream. We infiltrate a lot of water. The ponds are in a gravelly area, so there'll just be a dry grassed surface that will infiltrate water. Some of these outlets are higher than the bottom, and they're all designed to drain within about 72 hours, or no more than 72 hours, which is the requirement. But he again offered, as far as downstream flooding into that large wetland, that we are not going to impact. He said the impact may be 1 inch of water over that wetlands, which is not going to be a major impact to off-site. It would be contained within our wetlands. So that's all I have. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, you're still talking about retention ponds?
Yes.
You know, and how big will they be? Do you think they can handle that?
They've all been designed to handle what's coming down to them. There's 3. Actually, there's 4. So here's the roadway here. The wetlands is at the top of the page. Our property actually extends up above the page. But, so there's some catch basins at the beginning of the roadway. They're gonna flow into a detention pond that's right in here. As the roadway comes down, there's another set of detention pond, catch basins that will flow into these detention ponds here. And what happens here, this is detention pond 1. It actually overflows into detention pond 2. Detention pond 2 infiltrates all the water that runs into it. and then detention pond 1 just lets water out slowly. We have a swale where we capture water that's coming under the road here, runs through an easement in a swale to a pipe system, which goes under the roadway into detention pond 3, and that has its own outlet to control that flow. And then the bottom portion of the roadway flows into catch basins at a low point here, and then into a 4th detention area. So the detention ponds are pretty extensive. They, there's quite a
I was
quite a
under
bit
the
of volume.
impression that there was only going to be 2,
There's actually 4.
but that's,
Yeah. As you can see, we have detention pond. It's almost the whole backyards of all these houses, and they needed to be separate because it goes downhill, so we just, rather than building this one up with having it 20 feet deep, they're only a couple feet deep each. So,
Any more questions from the board? Abutters? Please. State your name, please.
Good evening, Michael Du Bois, 2 Jesse Road. The gentleman said that the highway, I have to contact the highway. They did come out and fix the culvert there. But according to, because I've been out of town, but my wife said when it rained, still water was going down. And he talks about the retaining ponds. I was thinking about, just like I said at the last meeting, that we have a lot of elderly in this town. We don't need any standing water to breed mosquitoes. It's just, it's dangerous. Now that we have all of these born mosquito with diseases and everything like that. But my most concern is that, what is the flow rate of the water?
the flow rate for what?
The water coming down
Coming down,
into that area, into your area. What is the flow rate leaving from the top where you say your retaining ponds are?
Yep.
What is that flow rate?
I can look it up, just give me a second.
Sir, could you also give him a copy of the Graves Engineering
Sure.
report?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what we do is we model 4 storms. There's a 2-year, 10-year, 25-year, and 100-year. And the precipitation amount for each, it goes up. In the 100-year storm, it's actually 8.35 inches of rain in one day. A 2-year storm is 3.2 inches of rain in one day. And that's a storm that is likely to occur every 2 years. The 100-year storm occurs once every 100 years. So in the 2-year storm, which is a common storm, the rate of runoff is 9.27 cubic feet per second. Before we do any development, it's 9.12 cubic feet per second after we do development. So that's cubic feet to gallons is 7.5. So that's 65 gallons per second is what the flow rate is pretty much before and after we do the development. And we reduce flows in each storm. The 10-year is 21 CFS down to 20. The 25 is 31 CFS down to 30. And the 100-year is 52 down to 51. So they're reduced in each storm.
Now, we was told that when they put the middle school and built the houses further up on Jesse Road, it would be 100 years before we get flooded. That's not the case. That is not the case. Mr. Joseph said the same thing. He said that they told them that it would be 100 years before we get flooded out. And the numbers is just on paper.
what was your response when he said that? Did he say it to you?
He told me to talk with conservation, and he was gonna look into that statement that he made. Because they said it was supposed to be 100 years before we got any water down in that area being flooded.
I mean, I can understand what you're saying,
Yep.
but that has nothing to do, I mean, the middle school has nothing to do with this project.
I understand, but I'm just trying to give you an example, what we've been told and what happens.
Oh, I agree that, a 100-year storm, he's saying it was almost 4 inches of rain, am I correct? Or
8.5, actually.
8.5?
In a day.
So, we're probably seeing a 100-year storm every 10 years, not once every year. I mean, 100 years now.
Right.
I would agree with you on that, but the guidelines that he has to go by and what we have to go by are set by the DEP. And we can't change those rules because we're not the DEP.
I understand that.
So he can only design something that he's given the guidelines, and he has to follow those guidelines. Graves Engineering, which is on the planning board, that's the planning board's engineer, and they're very good. He concurs with, he made some minor adjustments that they had, and they, according to the paperwork which was submitted, which you have a copy,
Yep.
that they fixed all the areas that were addressed, and that they're in full compliance with the DEP rules and regulations as far as stormwater management goes. So, I feel for you, but as far as this project goes, as the middle school, has nothing to do with this project.
Well, like I said, I was just using an example of what we was told.
Yep.
And now we're being told that it's only 8.5%, at 8 inches every 10 years.
Yep.
That's just, living there for the length of time I've been there, that's not the case. But I would just like to be able to read this and come back, if you don't mind. But just sit right here, and I'll let Ms. DiGennaro come up and voice her
Okay.
concerns. Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
I'm Virginia D. Donato, 10 Jesse Road. I spoke with someone who works for the Central Massachusetts Mosquito Project, and there was concern for the retention ponds with water and the mosquitoes. Did you indicate, sir, that the water would evaporate, or I don't know what the terminology is, but dissipate slowly? Run off slow, so that there'd be water in there, basically?
I believe he said 72 hours,
Yeah.
then the water would be gone.
Well, that would depend on Mother Nature, I would think. We can't just say, oh, yeah,
Yeah, if you had a
70
month of rain,
72 hours, shut the dam down. But how about the vegetation that they put in for these retention ponds? I spoke with somebody about this, and they said they can harbor the mosquitoes that cause the West Nile virus. So has this question been raised at all? I
Not
mean,
to my
it
knowledge.
seems to me we have this much land today that absorbs this water. Because we don't have ponds. We have a large piece of land that's not going to be a large piece of land. It's going to be a road, it's going to be houses. The land itself is going to be not available for absorption. So my question would be, we seem to always be, we're making changes. I think he made the statement, we're taking wetlands and making them better wetlands. I'm not convinced, but I don't know enough about it. That's all I have to say. I did send this email. You guys didn't get this email that I sent to Mr. Bell, who owned it?
Yes.
You got the email? Well, nobody seemed to address it tonight. I sent it to Mr. Balukonis, and he
Right, and
said he was...
I forwarded it to our wetland consultant, and he reviews it, Matthew Morrow.
Oh, okay. I thought, he said he was sent it to the Conservation and the Planning Board. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I got to say for tonight.
Okay,
Tune in next time.
I will respond.
Okay.
So these ponds, there are ways you can treat the water, and you can do constructed wetlands. Basically, you make wetlands that will breed mosquitoes. These ponds here, what they do is they're dry. They're actually constructed. We've done testing to find where the water table is, and we built the ponds 2 feet above the water table. So they're not going to collect groundwater, and they will drain. It's a gravelly soil, so they will drain. So the water flows into them, they fill up, and the water is released slowly through the small outlets on the pond, and then there's some water that remains in there at the end of the storm, and then that drains out. The requirement is 72 hours. Because this soil is so good, that large pond 1 and 2, where I said that's just primarily pond 2 is just infiltration, that infiltrates in 30.5 hours according to the calculations. Ponds, detention basin 4 infiltrates in 9 hours. And detention pond 3 does not have any infiltration, and that will just drain out. It'll be drained out by the end of the storm, the end of the day. So they're not designed to hold water. They'll be seeded with grass. There will not be wetland plants in there. I mean, is that to say that there won't be a puddle in there occasionally? I mean, just like anywhere, there could be a puddle on the ground, but they're designed not to be a wetland type detention pond. So. And we did say we would make the intermittent stream better. That culvert, as you recall, the culvert comes under the roadway, and there's a little bit of intermittent stream that we are replacing. That we will make better because we're gonna make it longer. It's gonna be a lot more intermittent stream resource area than exists there now. We're not touching any wetlands.
okay. Are there any more questions?
So just, if one of them could explain something to me.
Come on up.
I'll try.
On the part, you said there was like a swale going through,
In the back of these lots here.
is that gonna be something that's actually underground, or is it gonna be like a man-made brook all of a sudden going through there?
It will just be it'll be a grass swale. It won't be a dug brook. It'll be grass, and it will convey the water that comes off of the hill, that comes out under the roadway. There's some catch basins here that I think empty out into this area, and it will carry that water.
So it'll be something that's really not even noticeable, it'll just...
Right, it'll be just a grass swale. I mean, it's like a little channel, but it'll be grass. And it will, obviously, the water will flow through there when it rains, but again, it's not in the groundwater. It's not gonna have a lot of, wetland plants in it or anything like that.
Okay. That answers it?
Okay, are there any more questions?
Yeah, I just have on number 18. Now, you're going to put 18-inch pipes in by the culverts, so they drain out that way, or they're going to go through a
They go through a control structure. So that, and you've seen them, they stick up a lot of times in the ponds. They'll have a grate on the top, and there'll be some small holes on the pond side, but the pipe going out is 18 inches that comes out of that structure. So it has the ability to capture water from different orifices in the side, or holes in the side of that structure. As the water rises, more water goes out, and that's how we control the different storms.
So that just goes into 3 and not 4 retaining ponds?
There's a structure like that in all of the in all of the ponds. Except for, pond 2 does not have that structure because it infiltrates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I will close the hearing at 7:05. Matt's recommendation is to order a standard order of conditions for this project.
Make a motion, we issue a standard order of conditions for Jesse Road, notice of intent for subdivision.
Motion's been made.
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is September 19th meeting minutes.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes for September 19th, 2018, as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.